Before there were pharmacies, before there were hospitals, before there were pills with names you can barely pronounce, there were healers, men and women who walked the land, who understood the language of plants, who passed down knowledge through generations with the same care and precision that we now reserve for medical school textbooks. This video is about that knowledge. Specifically, it's about 20 remedies used by Native American tribes across North America. Remedies that have been validated by modern science that you can access right now, and that your great-great-grandparents would have recognized instantly. Before we go any further, an important note. This content is for educational purposes only and is not intended to diagnose, treat, cure, or prevent any disease. Always consult a qualified healthcare professional before starting any new health regimen, especially if you're pregnant, nursing on medication, or managing a chronic condition. What we're doing here is learning together, honoring ancestral wisdom, while understanding what science is now confirming about these ancient plants. Now, let's begin. Let's start with a plant so powerful that the US government actually commissioned studies on it during the early 1900s. And then the research sat in archives for decades before herbalists rediscovered it. Echinacea. You've probably seen it in the supplement aisle, maybe even taken it during cold season. But most people have no idea where it actually came from. The Plains tribes, the Lakota, the Cheyenne, the Comanche, they used echinacea more than any other plant in their medicine chest. Not just for colds, for snake bites, infected wounds, toothaches, sore throats, even sepsis. It was their go-to immune activator. Modern research has confirmed what those healers already knew. Studies suggest echinacea may help reduce the duration and severity of upper respiratory infections by stimulating white blood cell activity. It contains compounds called alkylamides and polysaccharides that appear to signal the immune system to ramp up its response. You can grow it in almost any garden. It's actually a beautiful purple coneflower that thrives in full sun and well-drained soil. Or you can find it at virtually any health food store in tincture, capsule, or tea form. Best taken at the first sign of illness, not as a daily supplement. Think of it as a rapid response tool. Now let's talk about a plant that almost every hiker has walked past without recognizing. Yarrow. This feathery-leafed wildflower has one of the most dramatic origin stories in all of herbal medicine. According to ancient Greek legend, the hero Achilles used it to stop the bleeding of his soldiers on the battlefield, hence its Latin name, Achillea millefolium. But long before Greek legends, Native American tribes across the continent, including the Navajo, the Cherokee, and the Ojibwe, were using yarrow for exactly the same thing, wound healing, specifically stopping bleeding fast. Apply crushed fresh yarrow leaves directly to a cut or scrape, and you'll see why they called it soldier's wound wort. It contains compounds that may help promote blood clotting and reduce inflammation at the wound site. But it's not just external. Yarrow tea has been used traditionally to support fever reduction by promoting healthy sweating and to ease menstrual discomfort. You can find yarrow growing wild in meadows across North America, or grow it yourself from seed. It's a perennial. Plant it once and it comes back year after year. Dry the flowers and leaves for tea, or keep a small bundle in your first aid kit for emergencies. You already know the name elderberry, but do you know that the Iroquois used every part of the elder tree, flowers, berries, bark, and roots, each for a different purpose? The flowers for fevers and colds, the berries for immune support and respiratory health, the bark as a purgative, the roots for inflammation. This wasn't a one-trick plant in indigenous tradition. It was an entire pharmacy in a single tree. Modern science has been particularly interested in the berries. Studies suggest that elderberry extract may significantly reduce the duration of influenza symptoms, possibly by blocking the virus's ability to attach to and enter healthy cells. It's loaded with anthocyanins, those deep purple pigments that act as potent antioxidants. You can make elderberry syrup at home with dried berries from any health store, honey, cinnamon, and cloves. Simmer for 45 minutes, strain, and store in the fridge. A tablespoon a day during cold and flu season is how many traditional families still use it. Just never eat raw elderberries. They must be cooked to neutralize mild compounds that can cause nausea. Here's one that might surprise you. Wild garlic, or ramps, as they're known in Appalachian communities, was so prized by eastern woodland tribes that spring ramp season was practically a sacred event. The Cherokee used it for chest congestion and highs, blood pressure. The Menominee used it as a spring tonic to cleanse the blood after a long, heavy winter diet. And the interesting thing is that wild garlic is chemically very similar to cultivated garlic, but with a more potent flavor, and, some researchers believe, a higher concentration of allicin, the sulfur compound responsible for garlic's health benefits. Research suggests allicin may support cardiovascular health, help maintain healthy blood pressure, and provide antimicrobial properties. Some studies have found it may help support healthy cholesterol balance. You can forage for wild ramps in hardwood forests in early spring. Look for broad, tulip-like leaves with a distinctive garlic smell, or simply grow regular garlic yourself. It's one of the easiest crops you'll ever plant. Bury individual cloves in fall, harvest in summer. The entire plant is usable, the bulb, the greens, even the flowers. Sage. Most people think of it as a cooking herb. Some know it as a ceremonial plant used in smudging rituals. But the medicinal history of sage runs far deeper than either of those uses. The Blackfoot and the Great Basin tribes used desert sage, specifically Artemisia tridentata, as a respiratory remedy, burning it and inhaling the smoke for congestion and headaches, and making strong teas from the leaves for digestive complaints and sore throats. The Romans used a related species so extensively that its Latin name, salvia, literally means to heal. Modern research has found that sage contains rosmarinic acid and carnosic acid, compounds with significant antioxidant and anti-inflammatory properties. Studies suggest it may support cognitive function, help manage menopausal hot flashes, and provide antimicrobial benefits. Culinary sage, the kind you already have in your spice cabinet, contains many of the same beneficial compounds. Brew a strong sage tea by steeping a tablespoon of fresh leaves in hot water for 10 minutes. Use it as a throat gargle for soreness or drink it warm for digestive support. Note: large medicinal doses are not recommended during pregnancy. Pause for a second, because if you're finding this valuable, the next 5 are where things get really interesting. We're moving into less well-known territory now. Plants that don't show up in mainstream health stores as often. Plants that carry some of the most dramatic stories in indigenous medicine history. If you want to keep learning about ancestral remedies and practical natural living, now's a good time to follow along so you don't miss what's coming. Because number 12 is something that most herbalists won't even mention, and it's growing in your backyard right now. Deep in the coastal rainforests of the Pacific Northwest, there grows a plant with thorns so vicious that even bears approach it with caution. But those same bears seek it out anyway, because they seem to know something. Devil's Club. Oplopanax horridus. This formidable, spine-covered plant has been one of the most sacred and powerful medicines in the traditions of Pacific Northwest tribes. The Haida, the Tlingit, the Coast Salish. It was used for arthritis and joint pain, for respiratory infections, for blood sugar support, and even as a spiritual protector. What makes Devil's Club remarkable is its chemical profile. It contains compounds that are structurally similar to the adaptogens found in Siberian ginseng, substances that may help the body adapt to physical and mental stress. Research has investigated its potential to support healthy blood sugar regulation and immune function. It's not widely available in mainstream stores, but you can find it through reputable herbal suppliers online. The inner bark is the most commonly used part, typically prepared as a decoction, simmered in water for 20 to 30 minutes. Always source this from ethical harvesters, as it's slow-growing and at risk of over-harvesting. Before aspirin, before ibuprofen, before any pharmaceutical pain reliever, there was the bark of the white willow tree, and the Native American tribes along the eastern seaboard knew exactly what they had. The Cherokee and the Iroquois chewed willow bark for fever and pain relief. The Lenape used it for headaches. What they were chewing contained salicin, the same compound that scientists in the 19th century would eventually synthesize into acetylsalicylic acid. Aspirin. The drug that generated billions of dollars in pharmaceutical revenue was, at its core, just a synthetic version of something that had been growing in river valleys for millennia. white willow bark still works beautifully in its natural form. Studies suggest it may help support relief from headache pain, lower back discomfort, and mild fever. Because the salicin is released more slowly than in pharmaceutical aspirin, some researchers believe it may be gentler on the stomach. You can find white willow bark in capsule and tincture form at most health stores. Important note: if you're taking blood thinners or have a salicylate sensitivity, consult your doctor first, and like aspirin, it's not appropriate for children under 16 with viral illnesses. There's a moment in every long hike when something hurts: blisters, muscle soreness, a twisted ankle. Mountain men in the 18th century knew exactly what to reach for, and they learned it from Native American guides. Arnica. Specifically, the golden-flowered Arnica montana and related species used by tribes across the northern Rockies and Great Plains. Applied externally to bruises, sprains, muscle soreness, and swelling, Arnica has been a staple of trauma first aid across multiple continents for centuries. The science here is strong. Research suggests that Arnica preparations may help reduce bruising, swelling, and muscle soreness after physical trauma or surgery. It contains helenoline, a compound with notable anti-inflammatory properties. You can find Arnica gels and creams at virtually any pharmacy today, usually in the homeopathic section. Grow it as an ornamental in mountain climate gardens. Critical safety note: Arnica is for external use only. It should never be ingested in its natural form, as it can be toxic. Stick to commercial preparations and follow label instructions. High in the mountains of the Southwest, where the desert meets the sky, Apache healers relied on a small, unassuming plant that looks almost like a berry bush. Uva ursi, or bearberry. Bears love the red berries. But the leaves, those waxy evergreen leaves, were what the healers valued. Bearberry leaf tea has been used across Native American traditions and later by European herbalists for one primary purpose: urinary tract support, specifically for the burning, urgency, and discomfort of UTIs. The active compound is arbutin, which converts to hydroquinone in the urinary tract, a substance with significant antimicrobial properties. Studies suggest bearberry may help support urinary tract health and reduce bacterial presence in the bladder. Important note: bearberry works best in an alkaline urine environment, so avoid acidic foods like citrus and cranberry while using it. It's not recommended for extended use. Short-term, targeted application is the traditional approach. Find it as a dried leaf for tea or in capsule form at herbal suppliers. Golden seal. If you've spent any time in herbal medicine circles, you've heard the name. But the story behind it is one of the most fascinating in North American botanical history. The Cherokee used golden seal root extensively for skin infections, digestive upset, eye inflammation, and as a wound treatment. When European settlers arrived, they quickly recognized its value, and within a century, golden seal was so over-harvested from wild populations that it became commercially endangered. The fact that people were willing to nearly wipe it out to possess it tells you something about how effective they believed it to be. The key compound is berberine, a bright yellow alkaloid that has been the subject of extensive modern research. Studies suggest berberine may support healthy blood sugar levels, provide antimicrobial activity against a range of bacteria and fungi, and support gut health. Golden seal is now mostly cultivated rather than wild harvested. Look for ethically sourced products. Use it in short cycles, not continuously. Traditional use was targeted and intentional. Available in tincture and capsule form. Not recommended during pregnancy. Here's something most people don't know. A huge percentage of the chronic conditions plaguing modern society trace back to one root cause: chronic inflammation compounded by gut dysfunction. Native American healers didn't frame it in those terms, but they identified the pattern thousands of years ago. And the next several plants in this list are specifically the tools they use to address it. Slippery elm bark. The inner bark of the slippery elm tree was one of the most widely used medicinal plants across eastern woodland tribes, used for everything from sore throats to stomach ulcers to diarrhea to skin irritation. When mixed with water, it forms a thick, gel-like substance called mucilage, and that mucilage coats and soothes inflamed tissue from your mouth to your digestive tract. Research suggests slippery elm may help support the integrity of the mucosal lining of the digestive tract, ease heartburn and acid reflux symptoms, and provide relief from irritable bowel discomfort. It's gentle enough for children and the elderly. Make a gruel by mixing a teaspoon of slippery elm powder with warm water and a little honey. Drink it slowly. You can also find lozenges that are particularly good for sore throats and dry coughs. It's one of the safest herbs on this entire list. Black cohosh carries one of the most remarkable stories of botanical diplomacy in American history. When European women arrived on the eastern frontier, they faced a challenge their herbalists back home had no answer for: severe menopausal symptoms in a land where their usual plants didn't grow. The Algonquin and Iroquois women showed them what worked: black cohosh root. Known to the Cherokee as rattleweed for its distinctive dried seed pods, it had been used for generations to ease menstrual cramps, irregular cycles, and, crucially, the hot flashes, night sweats, and mood changes of menopause. Modern research has been actively exploring black cohosh, and while the exact mechanism is still debated, numerous clinical studies suggest it may significantly help support relief from menopausal symptoms, particularly hot flashes. It appears to work through mechanisms distinct from estrogen, making it a subject of interest for women who can't use hormone therapy. Available widely in capsule and tincture form. Recommended dosage varies. Follow a reputable product's guidance. Not recommended during pregnancy or for those with hormone-sensitive conditions without medical consultation. Oregon grapefruit. Despite the name, this isn't related to the grapevine at all. It's a thorny shrub native to the Pacific coast whose yellow inner root bark contains one of the same powerhouse compounds as golden seal, berberine. Pacific Northwest tribes, the Nez Perce, the Quinault, used it for liver support, skin conditions like eczema and psoriasis, and as a digestive bitter to stimulate bile production and improve digestion. Here's why this matters for modern life. The liver is under constant strain from processed foods, alcohol, environmental toxins, and medications. Supporting healthy liver function has downstream effects on everything: energy, hormones, skin clarity, digestion. Oregon grapefruit's bitter compounds stimulate digestive secretions and may support liver detoxification pathways. It's more sustainable and more widely available than golden seal. Look for it in tincture form or grow the plant as a drought-tolerant ornamental shrub. It's beautiful, with yellow flowers and blue-black berries. Same pregnancy cautions apply. Juniper berry. Most people think of gin, but long before juniper went into a cocktail shaker, it was a staple of Plains and Great Basin tribal medicine. Shoshone healers used juniper berry tea for urinary tract infections and kidney support. The Navajo used it for arthritis and joint inflammation. The berries were also eaten to support digestion and relieve gas and bloating. A practical, everyday remedy as much as a formal medicine. Juniper contains compounds called monoterpenes that give it strong antimicrobial and diuretic properties. Studies suggest it may support kidney function by increasing urine flow and helping to flush out bacteria. The berries can be made into a simple tea. Crush a small handful of dried berries, simmer for 15 minutes, strain, and drink warm. Important: juniper is a diuretic, so drink extra water when using it. It's not appropriate for long-term use or for those with kidney disease. Always short-term and targeted. Avoid during pregnancy. Chokecherry. You've probably never seen this in a supplement store. But if you'd walked into a Lakota camp on the Great Plains 200 years ago, you'd have found chokecherry in almost everything: pemmican, medicine, ceremony. The bark was used for cough and cold remedies. The berries were eaten for digestive support. And the inner bark, made into a tea, was a go-to treatment for respiratory congestion and lung health. Chokecherry contains prunicin, a compound that, in the body, may help relax bronchial muscles and ease respiratory spasms, which is why it was so effective for coughs. The berries are also rich in antioxidants, among the highest of any wild fruit in North America. You can grow chokecherry as a landscape shrub in most temperate climates. It's cold-hardy, drought-tolerant, and produces enormous quantities of fruit. Make a syrup from the cooked berries the same way you'd make elderberry syrup. Note: Like elderberry, the raw pits contain compounds that must be cooked off. Never eat them raw or in large quantities. We're more than halfway through, and I want to take one moment to say something important. This knowledge was almost lost, not by accident, but through centuries of deliberate suppression of indigenous cultures, their languages, their ceremonies, and their medicine. Every plant on this list was known, used, and shared freely by people whose wisdom we are only now beginning to properly appreciate. When you grow these plants, when you learn these remedies, when you share this knowledge, you're participating in something meaningful. You're helping to keep a thread of human wisdom alive. Keep watching, because the last 5 are the ones that most people never learn about. The last 5 remedies on this list are the ones that rarely make it into mainstream herbalism books. They're not obscure because they don't work. They're obscure because they require more context, more care, and more cultural understanding to use properly. Let's honor that by taking them seriously. Sweetgrass, Hierocloe odorata. If you've ever smelled a freshly braided bundle of sweetgrass, you understand immediately why it's been called the sacred hair of Mother Earth. Sweetgrass is used ceremonially across almost every Plains tribe, burned to cleanse spaces, carried as a blessing, woven into baskets and gifts. But the medicinal uses are less well known. Sweetgrass tea was used traditionally to ease coughs and sore throats, and as a mild sedative to promote calm and reduce anxiety. Research has identified coumarin as a key compound in sweetgrass, a substance with mild anticoagulant properties and a distinctly sweet, vanilla-like fragrance. It may have mild anti-inflammatory and calming effects. You can grow sweetgrass in moist, well-drained soil. It spreads by rhizome and creates beautiful ground cover. Steep a small bundle in hot water for a fragrant, calming tea. Its power may be more subtle than some plants on this list, but in many traditions, the subtlest medicines are the ones you return to every day. Lobelia. This is where we move into more complex territory, because lobelia is powerful, and powerful means it requires respect. The Cherokee called it Indian tobacco and used it for asthma, bronchitis, and respiratory spasms. It was later adopted by 19th century American herbalists, particularly the eclectic physicians, as one of their primary bronchodilator remedies, meaning it was used to open the airways and ease breathing difficulty. The active compound, lobeline, has been studied for its effects on the respiratory system and even for its potential in supporting smoking cessation efforts. It acts on similar receptor pathways as nicotine, which may help reduce cravings. Research is ongoing. Lobelia is available in tincture form, and small doses are how it has traditionally been used. This is not a plant to take in large amounts. At high doses, it can cause nausea, vomiting, and other adverse effects. Start with the lowest recommended dose from a reputable formulation. This one requires caution and ideally professional herbal guidance. Bloodroot. The name alone tells you this is serious medicine. Sanguinaria canadensis, named for the brilliant red-orange sap that flows from its roots like blood, was used by eastern woodland tribes as one of their most powerful topical remedies. Applied externally, a diluted preparation was used for skin conditions including fungal infections and certain skin growths. It was also used in very small doses as an expectorant to help loosen and clear mucus from the lungs. The active compound, sanguinarine, is potent. Modern research has explored it extensively for antimicrobial and anti-inflammatory properties. You'll find sanguinarine in some toothpastes and mouthwashes for plaque control. Here's the important caution. Bloodroot should never be used in undiluted, concentrated form on skin. There are documented cases of severe tissue damage from products called black salve that use concentrated bloodroot. Traditional use was always diluted, carefully applied, and short-term. If you use it, use only commercially prepared products with known concentrations and consult a healthcare provider. Cattail. This one might make you laugh because chances are good that cattails grow within a few miles of where you're sitting right now. They line ponds, ditches, stream banks, and wetlands across virtually all of North America. And for that reason, they were one of the most consistently used plants across dozens of Native American tribes, not primarily as medicine, but as a complete survival resource. Food, shelter, cordage, fire. Starting, and yes, medicine. The gel that forms between the young leaves of cattail has traditionally been used as a topical treatment for burns, wounds, and skin irritation, acting as a natural soothing bandage. The pollen, produced in such abundance that you can collect it by the cupful in early summer, is highly nutritious and was used as a food supplement and as a wound-healing dust applied to cuts. Modern research has found antifungal properties in cattail extracts. This is one you truly can harvest yourself, almost anywhere. Learn to identify it properly. It's one of the easiest wild plants to recognize, and you'll never walk past a pond the same way again. And then there is Osha root, Ligusticum porteri, called bear medicine by the mountain tribes of the Southwest, the Zuni, the Apache, the Pueblo peoples, because bears were observed digging up and eating the roots after emerging from hibernation, apparently using it to reactivate their digestive and immune systems after months of dormancy. Osha has one of the richest folkloric reputations of any plant in North American herbal tradition. It smells like nothing else on earth. Deep, damp, celery-like, almost medicinal in its raw intensity. That smell is a clue to its chemistry. Osha contains Z-ligustolide and other phthalate compounds with demonstrated antiviral, anti-inflammatory, and bronchodilating properties. Studies suggest Osha may support immune response, help reduce respiratory congestion, and support overall lung health. It grows in mountain meadows above 7,000 feet, not something most people can forage easily. But you can find it in tincture form through reputable herbal suppliers. It's one of the few herbs that experienced herbalists consistently describe as genuinely feeling effective within a short time, which may explain why the title of this video resonated with so many of you. These 20 remedies are not a replacement for medical care. They are a complement to it, a reclamation of something that was always yours. The knowledge carried by Native American healers across centuries of observation, trial, and devotion was not superstition. It was science. Slow science, empirical science, passed through hands and voices instead of journals and laboratories. And while we must always honor the source of this wisdom and approach it with the respect it deserves, we also have every right to learn from it. Start small. Pick one plant from this list, the one that speaks most directly to something you or your family deals with regularly. Learn everything you can about it. Grow it if you can. Source it ethically if you can't. Use it carefully, intentionally, and always in partnership with professional medical guidance when needed. The plants have not forgotten what they know. Maybe it's time we remembered too. If you found this valuable, share it with someone who needs it. And if you want to go deeper into ancestral wisdom, natural remedies, and traditional living, you know where to find us.